So we look up, and what I saw was an array of lights, very much like marquee lights. If they were normal marquee lights, they would have been 5 feet on top of us. That's how big they were.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Odd Virginia. I'm Alex Koska, and I'll be your host for the show. Today I've got not one, but two guests in the studio. My friend Josh had told me a while back about a experience that he's had, rather unique experience, and I tried to get him on the show, and he said, wait a minute, I've got another friend, and a lot more stories, and a lot of these things we experienced together. So we brought Derek down with Josh to do a double interview, two at one time, and I get along with these guys so well, it's not even funny. Derek brought down some homemade mead, and we sipped on that, and we bantered a bit, got a little off topic at times, but we got some good stories in there, and apparently there's going to be a lot more to come. But with that drinking of the mead, we had a few slips of the tongue, and I think it would probably be necessary for me to put a mature language disclaimer on this episode. Now, we've had a couple bombs dropped on the shows before, and I never put a disclaimer on then, but I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? It'd be a good idea just to give someone fair warning. You never know where someone's listening to these shows, if the little ones are around, so just use your discretion. A little adult language and a little talk of recreational drug use. Nothing egregious, but I just wanted to put that out there. You know I like to keep the show as clean as possible for all of you out there listening. I'm sure some of you don't care, but some of you might. And before I interview a guest, I always like to make a disclaimer to them as well. We need to try to keep it as clean as possible and respect people's sensibilities. And sometimes when you're sipping on mead, you might let that get away from you and revert to a kind of more natural conversationalism. Which is what we did, and man, that mead was so good. It was brewed with not only honey, but also grapes, he said. And you could just drink it forever. It was like you're drinking a honey grape juice. It was so good. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the interview with Derek and Josh. But right before we do, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been listening up to this point. Most of you are just my family and friends, and I'm always thinking about you guys while I'm making the show. There's also a couple of people who have just stumbled upon the show, and I want to thank you guys as well for tuning in and sticking around. And for everyone who's donated to my coffee fund to help keep the show coming along every evening that I work on it. I sip in your honor. And one last thing before the interview, if you have also experienced anything strange within the realms of the Commonwealth, or if you have any knowledge of any weird history of Virginia, send me an email. The email address is oddvirginia@protonmail.com. That's oddvirginia@protonmail.com. I'm not here to judge you. Just as Venkman, Spengler, and Stantz once said,
we're ready to believe you.
all right, everybody. Today on the show, I've got a double header. Two guests in the Odd Virginia studio joining us to tell us their experiences. Today, we've got Josh and Derek, which is it's exciting for me. We'll see how this works out, having two at one time. But I think we're going to have a wonderful three-way conversation here. Josh, how are you doing, man? Thank you for coming down.
Oh, I'm doing fine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Derek, you as well. I appreciate you being here. We've been trying to make this work for a while. And finally, we were all able to get together. Our schedules lined up, and here we are.
Yeah, man.
So, Josh, you were actually the first person I tried to interview for this podcast, and the audio was kind of bad, so we scrapped it. So I will be rehearing one of your stories tonight, but if you want to just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, you know, who you are, where you live, what you've been up to, whatever you want to share as public record, just for some familiarity.
Sure, thank you. My name is Josh. I live in Stanton, Virginia. I'm a digital artist, former model photographer, proud father of a beautiful 5-year-old girl, and that's me.
Awesome. Yeah, I love your art personally. You do a lot of Indiana Jones 3D models, and it's freaking sweet to see the different scenes and situations you put him in.
Thank you. I don't get a lot of feedback ever. So it's nice to hear anything, really.
Yeah, well, I have the pleasure of being able to watch you work pretty often, and it's sweet. I like it. You're a very talented artist.
Much appreciated.
And Derek, what about you? What have you been up to lately?
Not much, man. Just hating wintertime, really.
Yeah, same. Wintertime's depressing.
It is.
Kind
Sucks.
of. There's no sunlight. You kind of just want to sleep the whole time. I think naturally people are inclined to just sleep when there's less daylight. But as I'm sure you're familiar, having a 9-to-5 job or whatever, a full-time job,
right?
You don't really get that luxury of caving to your natural instincts.
No, that's true. Yeah, I'm from Stanton too, like Josh. Not much going on around here except for ghosts, apparently. What we're here to discuss tonight.
Yeah, ghosts are everywhere. Ghosts abound.
That's right.
It's a thriving enterprise for some people in this town. Hauntings. There's a fellow here in town that does the ghost tours.
Yeah, the ghost tours.
I've always been very skeptical about that guy.
Right. Well, when you're packaging it up like that in such a way where you have to craft a narrative and sell it to people on a tour, you're not really sure how much of what you're getting is legitimate. This isn't someone who's been there and experienced it. This is like tales handed down, perhaps,
yes,
for the most part. So
we have more than enough of those in Stanton, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So if you feel so inclined to come to Stanton and try to make a buck off of it, there's probably an inn for you somewhere.
Business is booming. So I think that kind of actually hints a little bit at what our first story was. If I remember correctly, you wanted to talk about that time that you guys got together on a St. Patrick's Day. When was it exactly?
Oh my God.
How long
maybe
ago?
15 years ago?
Dude, no, it was longer than that.
You think so?
Yeah,
maybe. Derek and I were talking a bit ago before we started and pieced together. We've been friends for about 20 years now.
Okay.
20 years.
We didn't know each other very long before this happened.
No.
So it's got to be getting on 20 years.
Well, people who get scared together stay together.
That's a good point. Very good point. And this was actually one of the most terrifying experiences I've ever had in my life.
So we're looking at about like the year 2000-ish, that turn of the century kind of.
I would say, yeah, 2001, 2, 3, somewhere around there.
Well, I graduated in 2002. So maybe it was more like 2002 or 3.
Okay.
Derek and I actually met each other in GED class, but never really talked.
Yeah.
And it was right after graduation that we met at a party at a friend's house. And it couldn't have been a year, maybe even less than that this happened.
Right.
So it does start at a St. Patrick. Was it a St. Patrick's Day party, or everybody was getting hammered?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah. This had to have happened somewhere other than the party. I know that's where it starts, but where does it kind of roll into the experience?
Okay, well, my family's from Stanton, but after my parents divorced, my father spent a lot of time living in Craigsville. So I kind of knew a little bit about Craigsville from being out there.
Yeah, Craigsville's no man's land.
I don't believe they have police in Craigsville.
Maybe one.
The police are in on it.
I remember a separate incident.
They are the ghosts.
There's a separate incident I won't get into involving a couple friends of mine having their car vandalized while I was showing them a part of Craigsville. And they called the cops to report it, and the cops said, well, you're going to have to drive something like 10 miles
you come to
the county, and we'll meet you there because we can't go to Craigsville.
What?
That kind of place. Oh,
was it not their jurisdiction?
It was not their jurisdiction. It's a shady no man's land. I mean, if you go to Craigsville right now, there are signs on the side of the road that said, who killed our son? And then a phone number. Okay, that's creepy, right?
Oh, my God.
But these people must know each other well enough that when someone says, who killed our son, the rest of Craigsville knows who they're talking about.
Yeah.
Because there were no names, there were no pictures. It's just a creepy little backwood.
Everybody knows who lives in that house. You don't have to. You don't have to mention his name.
And probably at least 80% of them are on crystal meth.
Yeah. So for reference, we actually talked about Deerfield in episode, I think it was 8, Whispers in the Woods, when Dexter came on to tell his stories about experiences in Deerfield. Craigsville's right next to that.
Not far.
Yeah, not far at all. And Deerfield has a population of 142. I don't know what the Craigsville population is.
I don't know if it would be possible to get an accurate census in Craigsville.
Of course you could.
Right, but this is all just going to say that it's known for like being sort of an out of the way meth production area, and it's pretty backwoods. Yeah, so that sort of sets our story.
There's a lot of ruined, burned down houses out there, and I'm not saying it was meth, but you know.
Oh yeah.
Might have been.
So many husks of buildings and houses. In
I kind of like
Craigsville.
Craigsville personally, but got a little charm to it, a little creepy charm.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well, you go out there to whenever we go to Goshen, we stop by Craigsville to buy some, beef patties before we go out there, so we can cook and drink beer and swim.
Yeah, they like meat out there.
Oh,
Fresh
don't they?
meat.
Mm-hmm. So you guys were partying it up in.
Oh, this is
I don't know where we were at. Where the hell
we were at a friend Brad's apartment. That would be the Bear Street Apartments for anyone in Stanton.
Okay,
Right.
so yeah,
They're not even called Bear Street Apartments. It's just sort of the colloquial name for them.
right. Well, it's on Bear Street.
And I know I must have been in the house we're about to talk about once before. I had to have been, or at least been by there. I'm pretty sure I'd been in there before. When we got to talking one night at our friend's place, this is, as we said, St. Patrick's Day night, a full moon. You don't forget a full moon on a night like this, partially because everything was so well lit. But we were all drinking. I really don't know how the conversation turned around, but at some point I must have said, I know a house in Craigsville, which by the way is about a 30-minute drive outside Stanton, that I'm pretty sure is haunted. And I believe it must have piqued the curiosity of Derek and a mutual friend of ours. And they said, well, hell, let's see it.
How did
What
you
better
know?
time than now?
How did you know it was haunted?
That's where I'm a little fuzzy.
Yeah.
Is it just the way that it looked? 'Cause sometimes I'll look at a house and I'm like, pretty sure that's haunted.
I can't
Yeah.
honestly say. I mean, we're talking about probably 20 years ago, and I'm not advocating this to any of our listeners, but I have done a lot to my brain since then.
Yeah.
I do remember that I brought it up. I knew where it was. Like I said, Derek here and our mutual friend Daryl were interested, wanted to see it that night. So that's what we did.
It was fun. Well, kind
It
of.
was something.
Well, dude, when you're in your early 20s or super late teens, and you finally have the freedom you have a driver's license, you got a new car, going out and exploring things that are normally considered to be off limits is like the peak of excitement. My friends and I did that a lot when we were kids. We were into urban exploration. We mapped out all the storm drain tunnels underneath Stanton, and we explored a bunch of different abandoned nursing homes and other old buildings.
Oh yeah, it's fun times.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some weird things that happened, but yeah, the thrill of it was just like going someplace where people haven't really touched in a while, seeing how sort of time is taking its toll on an old building.
I've never been a guy who actively searches for paranormal activity, but I've always been a sucker for abandoned buildings and homes.
Yeah. There's a very mystical sort of allure to it.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It
Probably
takes
goes
you
back-
away. It takes you away, really.
Yeah.
It's
Probably
like-
goes back to my days playing Silent Hill.
So it's like a time capsule.
Honestly.
Yeah, Silent Hill, I'm sure definitely sparked that interest in a lot of people because it was sort of like doing that. It was a simulation of doing that, except throw in some zombies and other weird muck creatures.
Yeah,
lickers.
everything in Silent Hill looked like, any given building in Craigsville, honestly.
Well, now it's like I see an abandoned house. I'm looking at it and I'm like thinking there was a family there. Some kid probably grew up,
Mhm.
left for the military, college, whatever. And, whole life is lived. Maybe many lives have lived in that house. And it's all gone. It's left derelict for what?
Yeah.
And, you look back and like me, I'm kind of an introspective person. So it kind of takes me away, really.
There's
Yeah.
definitely a story there. And
Yeah, definitely.
the weirdest thing about a lot of these places is the fact that so much of it is just left as it was. You were telling me earlier, Josh, about this house that you were photographing in that still had a piano and like meat grinders in it.
Mhm.
And
Oh yeah,
It's a good mix.
there was a prom dress still in the wrapping from the dry cleaner that had the receipt inside of it that was dated sometime in the mid to late 1970s.
wow.
Holy crap.
I mean, it's like these people picked up and left.
And you wonder what it is that made, why that story had to end so abruptly. Because
I know.
when you see something that's
So
left as it
bizarre.
was, it's like you would think that, an old person died and their kids would come and take care of the property and clean it up. And, even if they do just abandon the facility, the home, that something would become of all of those possessions and those belongings. But sometimes it's just it's just there. It's still
You would
there
think a
after
prom
30,
dress
40, 50
Well,
years.
normally people
Would be
fight
something
over
to take.
possessions when a
Yeah.
family member dies. You know,
Yeah,
people
that
are
actually
like,
makes sense.
that's mine. No, that's mine. You know, brothers fight over whatever their mom or dad had. And, you know, things are never left just laying there. And I've seen, you know, videos on YouTube where people have just, like a house from like 1970 or 60 that's completely furnished, has everything, but there's a layer of dust. It's slightly dilapidated, but it's been closed off all those years. It's so bizarre. Like, what is going on there?
Not only is it bizarre, but it's actually kind of sad.
It's sad too. Yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
definitely.
Like there was a story there that just ended abruptly, and it's weird. It's like
A house without people is an entirely different thing
it is.
than an
There's no
occupied
life
home.
or soul there.
I mean, could it be a cryptid or aliens or cartel? It's hard to tell. I mean, really, what makes a whole family disappear like that? Or
Just pack up or not even pack up and leave, just leave.
yeah, it's truly weird, man.
In this case, it may have been the foundation. The house we're speaking about, which is not the house we're going to tell a story about, but half of it had begun to sink into the foundation, and the other half did not, and it gave the entire house this sort of cabinet of Dr. Caligari, kind of Tim Burton sort of abstract kind of proportions to it. Even though all that had happened is half of it began to sink, but the whole thing was off kilter and slanted. Very Tim Burton, very German expressionism.
Yeah, actually, if you can provide the photos of that just for fun, I'll post those in the show notes so that anyone listening who wants to see that house, not that this is the purportedly haunted house, but just a cool looking house.
Yeah,
and you got some
absolutely.
good shots in there too because you were a photographer.
Oh, it's all on Facebook. I'll give you the link.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'd be great. But let's move ahead into the story. The main event that everyone came for. And Derek, we roped you into this because Josh was supposed to tell his stories, and he was like, "Well, I've got a friend who actually was there for a lot of this, and I kind of want him there to provide that extra perspective and maybe be able to touch on things that I might forget, slip my mind."
Of course.
So yeah, bring us to where you guys were partying on Bear Street, and then you decided, I guess off of a whim, to take a drive down to Craigsville, which is like, what, 30 minutes?
It's a good 30, 35-minute drive.
Yeah.
At night. Full moon, though.
You know, we were kids. I say kid because, you know, it was 20 years ago. And I'm actually kind of blurry on the events leading up to the house. I know the house moment when we drove up to the house is, for me,
That's what sticks out to me,
it's
too.
vivid as hell. It really is. Like the whole layout, where the moon was at, everything, the house, and then the apparition, of course. It's all very vivid to me, and it was stuck in my mind.
Okay, apparition, of course, is not something that should be said. An apparition is not a given. What is this?
We watch a lot of Ghostbusters.
Okay, well, I
You
mean,
have to forgive
as
the
do I.
terminology.
I don't really want to say
level
a
3
ghost.
phantasm?
Well, yeah. I mean, I wish I had a scientific explanation. I'm sure one day there will be, but like, to me, it looked like
We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
it looked like mist or smoke. Kind of. It had a form, but it wasn't really detailed. It was masculine because I say masculine because it had broad shoulders. It was definitely a man at some point, I would say. And we were close enough to the house to where if it would have been an actual person that did this, that was in that window, you would have seen facial features. You would have at least seen the eyes, the dark points of the eyes, and maybe the mouth or something. You would have seen some features, but this thing was illuminated by the moon, and it like lit this apparition or ghost or phantasm alight, and we could all see it at the same time. And the way it moved out of the way, once I saw it, was just so unnatural.
And by the way, I'd like to mention, it was neither Derek nor I that saw it first.
It was
It was
Daryl.
our third friend, Daryl.
Daryl saw it. Yeah.
He said, "What's that?"
Yep.
in the middle window on the second floor.
Yep.
And as soon as Derek and I looked up, that's when it moved. Like, oh shit, I'm being watched.
It's like
You gotta imagine we're looking in a window, a second story window of a house from the road at night, but the full moon is facing the house.
right.
So in a square in which we should have seen blackness, we saw a sort of man-shaped, but not definite featured white shape.
Right.
As soon as Derek and I saw it, it stepped to the our left. I guess it's right.
No, it went well
and out of the window.
It stepped to our left, but it did not look like a step. It was more like if you hit a cigarette and then turn on a fan. It was like it was a weird, I can't even describe it. It was just a weird movement.
It was like a vaporous form that just sort of shifted and
it clearly
didn't disappear. It moved.
Yeah, it shifted out of the way, but it was an abrupt, almost unnatural kind of just, I don't know how to describe it, man. It was
clearly not interested in being in the window any longer.
No, and I just instantly, like, I remember like kind of tearing up and I had this feeling of dread. And I had a feeling that this thing was telling me to get the hell out of there. It wanted us to leave.
It felt like it was imposing a sort of feeling. I don't want to say like a telepathic feeling, but it was definitely.
No, it was telepathic.
It was pressuring.
I feel like
you
it
somehow.
Was. Yeah, I mean,
via some means.
I've thought about it over the years, and I feel like this thing was looking out the window, and we rolled up on it. And because Josh, yeah, that's right, Josh cut off his headlights.
What I did originally, when I said earlier we were getting ahead of ourselves, I want to say exactly what happened leading up to it.
Okay.
As you drive past the house, it's on the right, on a very lonely road. Okay. What I said was, you can't really get a good look of it. Let me turn around. So I went maybe 20 yards past the house. There's a Y intersection. And I went up one road, backed up the other, 3-point turn, came back past the house with the house on our left. That is when we saw it. I turned off the headlights so everyone could get a better look. Yep. And we all rolled the windows down, and that's when Daryl said, "Hey, what's that in the second story window?" And I think Derek and I said, "Where?" And he said, "Right in the middle." That's when we saw it.
Yep. And dude, it was wow.
Yeah, that's incredible. My first thing that comes to my mind as far as just a little bit of clarification is how apparently visible was this thing? Because like you said earlier, you're talking about cigarette smoke. There could be a very thick plume of smoke or just a very thin one. How dense would you say that this sort of vapor was forming a human shape?
You ever seen a cloud of cigarette smoke in front of a projector?
Yeah, I think I have in movies.
It's pretty thick. Pretty dense.
Yes.
It was like a really clear silhouette, but it looked like it was made of a silver mist.
So it wasn't really faint at all. It was defined. It was there.
It was defined enough to see in the dark.
Exactly, dude.
By moonlight.
He cut off his headlights, and all we had to my right, I'm sitting in the back seat on Josh's side. He's driving, and the moon is on my right side up in the sky, bright. It's cascading its light on this house to my left. So all we had to go on was the moonlight, and our eyes, had focused to that because, we went down this road for a minute, with the lights off, roll up on this house. And, it's like if you cut a silhouette out of smoke and put it in a black backdrop. I mean, it was clearly there. It clearly moved. It was not like who hallucinates the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's my whole thing. Like if I'd have seen it by myself, I might have wrote it off. But the fact and that feeling I had too, that feeling of dread and get the hell out of there. That's what said it for me too.
Not only that, but a week or two later, I actually, using chalk and watercolor, I drew exactly what I remember and showed it to Derek.
I can still see that watercolor in my head, man.
He said that's exactly what I saw.
Yep, he did, and I wish he still had it because that'd be great to put on your site, Alex.
Oh yeah, I don't know if that's still laying around. No, you're shaking your head.
I'm talking 20 years, man.
20 years ago, I'm a bit of a burnout, and I've done a lot of moving around. I wish to God I'd kept a lot of this shit.
Well,
at one point we went back
out there
and
again.
I had newspapers from the 1940s that we got out of there. There was, when we eventually went back.
Like the 70s, like 77. There was like
there were church pamphlets from the 70s upstairs.
Right, there were pamphlets.
There were newspapers in the living room talking about spies, Hitler's spies being captured.
Dude, why didn't we take that?
I took a couple of them, and like everything else, I have no idea where they are anymore.
And that, by the way, this was not the same night. That night when we saw this apparition thing,
We split.
Got the hell out of Dodge.
Went right back to Stanton.
Yeah,
Like I remember,
I'm sure
I remember the tires actually spinning on the gravel road.
Talking about it at the party, nobody fucking believing us. Probably thought we fucked off.
So you went back to the St. Patty's party afterwards?
Yeah, we went right back when we were done.
So like the ride back, like once we got on the road back to Stanton, the main highway, we were silent. Everybody was quiet as a mouse. And I remember saying to myself, I said out loud, I said, what did we just see? And everybody was still kind of quiet. Like, no, it's hard to grasp and admit something that you might get ridiculed for. But I knew damn well what it was.
But to hear either Derek or Daryl describe what they saw, it was exactly what I saw.
Yeah.
We saw the same thing.
So to answer the question, what the hell did I
Daryl
see?
certainly did, because he was the first to see it.
Yeah.
Josh, you and I are both big fans of Ghostbusters. Derek, I assume you probably would be like,
Dude,
who's not?
come on. I'm wearing a
Come
blue
on.
jumpsuit, and I know it's not Ghostbusters, but you know.
No, I was thinking you kind of look like a Ghostbuster without the the Venkman patch or whatever. You need to get your own patch. And I know Josh actually
I've got
is such a
some evidence on
fanboy
it.
that he has his own jumpsuit with the patch and everything.
He's a fanboy.
Yeah, you've had plenty more than that. But what do you think Egon would classify this as?
Shit, I would go more with Ray.
Yeah, Ray Stantz is my favorite character.
Ray-
everybody,
I
just
like
for the
Ray,
record.
Well, one thing you got to know is Dan Aykroyd comes from a long line of paranormal investigators. His
Yes.
father or grandfather, Peter Aykroyd, wrote the book on hauntings.
Mm-hmm. What was the manual in Ghostbusters?
Tobin's Spirit Guide.
Tobin's Spirit Guide, that's right.
They
Yeah, yeah,
sell
yeah.
a mock version of that now.
Nice.
Oh, dude, I want that.
Uh-huh.
That's fucking dope.
How would he describe it? I don't know. It was full torso. It was vaporous.
Yeah, it's a level 5 vaporous.
It had
apparition.
arms and legs.
This is true.
It had arms.
Well,
we don't know about the legs.
Yeah, I didn't see legs, but it definitely
It
had
looked
a
like
torso.
a whole person.
It
didn't
did.
I wonder who would just be sitting out in Craigsville. Well, which crackhead would be sitting out in Craigsville late at night with a finger puppet, just waiting for someone to drive by to put on a show.
Well, dude, I'm telling you right now, if it had been in person, we would have known. And I'm telling you also, we should go out there again, and we should bring a tape measure, and we should measure how far the facade of that house, the front of that house is from the road, because I'm telling you, it's at least 15 feet. It's no more. It's a small front yard.
It's 15.
It's a small front yard. So you're up close and personal.
It's
with
like
the
2 or
house.
3 steps and you're on the porch
Yeah.
from the road.
And it's now the house is really gone now, but we could at least get a measurement on how far away we were when we witnessed this thing.
Well, what are you doing tomorrow night? Maybe we can go and try that.
I'm free as a bird.
Josh,
Same as far as I know. Yeah, I should.
as long as I'm back early from work, we can take a little trip down there.
You have a machete?
I've got a couple knives.
It's
We-
wintertime.
we-
It's wintertime.
If
so-
you want to get any further, it's wintertime. That's right. Well, we might be able to get it. Last time I was there was when I was doing a model shoot, and I wanted to shoot in that house.
Let's get back to the house, man. I want to know, because you went back there
Yes.
and you had a second story. I'm not really sure all of what this involves, but
that was a crazy weird
How
day.
much longer after you saw that apparition and drove the hell out did you
It's
come
impossible
back?
to say, but probably not more than a month or two.
No, it wasn't
Maybe a matter of
long.
weeks.
It was the intriguing aspect of it was like we wanted to go back because Josh and me, Josh is really into Ghostbusters. We grew up with Ghostbusters, and like we want to go back and Ghostbust.
And we spent a day. We spent a whole day just going around Craigsville,
Yep.
looking at all the fucking weird
So
shit.
after being scared by a ghost, you were just like, wait a minute, I ain't afraid of no ghost.
Exactly. We want to go dip into the well of eternal knowledge and find out what the hell's going on there, and make sure there wasn't a meth head like with his puppets or whatever.
We'll
but-
take people who've been claimed to have been abducted by aliens. Now, you would think that they would be scared for their mortal lives, but they're not. Many of them want to make second contact.
It's true.
If you come out of something that bizarre unscathed, odds are you want more.
Well, yeah, paradigm shifting. You want to know
Mhm.
why your paradigm was shifted.
Absolutely.
Like, because you're like wondering the whole time you're growing up, ghost. Ooh, it's creepy. Then
Mhm.
you see one and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah,
It's beyond creepy.
that's very well put. I think when someone does see something like that, and as you said, come out unscathed, you're like, okay, so my chances of surviving this are really great, and the mystery of it is even greater, and I want to figure this out.
Yep.
So you guys went back. Was it just the two of you?
Yeah, it was just us then.
And you went in.
We went in. I'd been in before. I'm fairly certain I'd been in before. That's how I knew about this place.
See, no, there's another time we went back with a group of people. We had there was 2 girls. Jason was with us.
Yeah, but I think that was after.
That was after our.
That was after
this was
what
after
we're
the
about
time
to
we're
talk
talking
about.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I had never been in before, so we we went around. We went through the side door of this place, and it's the floorboards are they're caving in. There's a wash machine in the middle of the kitchen.
You almost need a machete to get to the front door.
Dude, it was really sketchy, man. Like the stairs didn't have a banister. They're just stairs went up into a floor. And the house is old. There was not a concrete, but
at least as old as the 40s.
There was a brick column in the middle of the living room, and there was a little cast iron stove built into that. And this is kind of where me and Josh just kind of sit down on the floor and just kind of chilled. And he had a recorder with him, an audio recorder. And just
we were hoping for electronic voice phenomenon.
Yeah, something crazy. We wanted something crazy. We got crazy, but
it wasn't what we were expecting.
It was terrifying.
See, now this was before the proliferation of ghost hunting shows. So how did you guys know about EVP?
I didn't really. I just knew he had a recorder, and I knew that the Ghostbusters had cool equipment that we couldn't afford.
I didn't know it as EVP.
Yeah,
that's something I learned later. But
what is EVP again?
Electronic voice phenomena, right?
Yes.
The spirits contact you through electronic equipment, audio equipment.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can pick up voices that you didn't even hear while the voice was happening, right?
And that's what
you
we
go
were
back
expecting.
And you listen.
Because we were walking around and Derek was saying, is there anything there? Can you hear us? Is there anyone with us?
Right.
And nothing, But I'll let you take it from here.
No, we were sitting in the living room and around this brick column, and you can, in the recording, I remember you can hear leaves rustling, the windows. There's no windows, so the wind's blowing through the house. There's dead leaves in the house, and you can hear them rustling in the background. And you hear this heavy boot sound, thump, 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 thump. It sounded like somebody ran up the stairs wearing heavy boots. And I remember being utterly terrified, but I ran around the corner and looked, and there was nothing there.
And then we ran up the stairs. The upstairs was practically a single room.
No, you go upstairs, and it opens up into one room, and then you go through there's a wall there, and you go into another back room.
But you can see all of it from the stairs.
Right. And there's nothing there. There's nobody there. So that, it was another one of those experiences.
Now, I've told this story and someone said, could it have been a raccoon? No,
dude.
That's an unmistakable noise. The sound of human
footsteps.
Yeah. It was a boot sound.
Now, we were on exactly the other side of the wall, maybe not 2 feet from the wall, when we heard these footsteps go up the stairs on the other side of the wall.
Right.
And,
yeah, that's true.
And the doorway that was probably 3 to 4 feet behind us is the doorway that led directly in front of the steps. There was no mistaking what we heard.
No, it was right in the next room over. And oddly enough, if there was a person walking up those stairs wearing boots, they would have walked right into the same room, looking out the same window where we saw the initial odd thing that we saw.
Yep. And they would have had to have leapt from that window to escape us.
Wish they did.
There's no way that someone could have leapt from a second-story window and us not known it. Especially with us parked on the other side.
Do you remember how low the ceilings were in this house? Me and you, we're tall guys. I'm 6'3". What are you, Josh? 6'3"? 6'2"?
I'm 6'2".
So we're tall
you guys. Are both big boys.
We're tall. So I remember having to kind of crane my neck. If you go around the back of the house and in the back rooms, the ceilings are 5 feet tall. They're low as shit. I'm wondering, did dwarves live here? But back in the old days, people weren't as tall.
People were certainly much shorter.
Yeah, they were shorter. And, so it's an old house. It's really old. It's hard telling what's happened there.
Yeah, I was actually out delivering packages the other day at my job, and I go way out into the mountains, and I saw a outdoor latrine, an outhouse, and the thing had to have been about 5 feet tall altogether.
Yeah. This house has an outhouse, by the way.
Yeah.
It has an outhouse. Mm-hmm. It's that old.
If you can get to it.
Yeah. I mean, it was
oh my God, it's like a jungle has grown up around the house. But yeah, there's an outhouse in the back that tells you how old it is.
Well, there's
newspapers from the 40s.
There's a tree growing through the front of the house on the porch now.
Yep.
The house is no more.
It's dilapidated, but it is not more than 50 to 70 yards from a church. And the church has a house behind it, which is probably the minister's home. So I assume that this house is probably now church property.
We know what's weird is that a lot of times, like pastors, ministers, whatever, they live really close to the church.
Mm-hmm.
Like really close. And we found those Bible pamphlets from the 70s.
Yeah. Like the tracts, the pamphlets that they hand, what are they called? The bulletins that they hand out at church.
Yeah.
There were piles and piles of them.
All from the 70s.
All from the 70s on the second floor. Just scattered around the floor. Like we have nowhere else to put them. For some reason, they didn't throw them away. I don't know why.
Well, if the house had been looted, everybody left. That's the last thing I left.
Yeah, so it's a weird thing to think that someone would have been hoarding piles of church bulletins.
Do you remember the newspaper article that was nailed
pastor's house
to the wall on the second floor?
Was that the time we went with Brad and all them? Like,
I went later than that with Kurt and Becca and Matt. And we found a newspaper article from the 60s that was nailed to the wall on the upstairs. It was about a murder case in Craigsville.
Oh, God.
Now, I don't know if the case had anything to do with the house.
I remember you telling me about that, actually.
I don't know what the significance was. I thought it was an odd thing to be tacked up to the wall in an abandoned house.
Yeah.
Weird.
That had obviously been abandoned since
70s.
The article.
So you said when the boots or footsteps rather going up the stairs, you were recording for EVPs, right?
Yeah. We had forgotten even later that we had been recording at that time. We went back to my house afterwards and went back and listened for EVPs.
You're right.
The only thing we heard were those footsteps on the tape.
Well, no,
Okay,
you
so
can hear
it.
No,
Yes.
you can hear us. I remember the recording. You can hear us. You can hear the leaves rustling, and then you can hear the thunk, 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 thunk. You can hear the boots going up the stairs.
And then Derek going, did you hear that?
Yeah, you can hear it in the recording. It's like, did you hear that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's go up there.
Yeah.
And then our steps. And then, what is it? You know?
Yeah.
That's
Dude.
pretty cool. I wish we had that recording available.
Brother, if I ever come across it, you'll be the first to know. You and Derek.
Yeah,
Like I said, this is 20 years ago.
The irony of this, Alex, is that we have one of the greatest ghost investigations ever because we had audio.
Hmm.
We didn't have video, but we had 3 people that saw the same damn thing.
Yeah, I'd say that's.
And we have a
significant.
location. We have, it was a really good ghost experience for anybody that's interested. But it's like, what are you going to do now? The house is completely turned into mush.
Yeah, there's whoever was living there, even after presumably they died, might have moved out by now.
I'll tell you, I would love to learn more about the house's history
Me too.
for my own satisfaction.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I'd like to know a lot more about, and houses like that, very specific addresses, very difficult to get information on. But I've been delivering to a town called Elkton out here.
Oh, Elkton, yeah.
And there's a street or a road that I deliver on called Giant's Grave Road. And I just see that name and I think, what the hell happened that place got named Giant's Grave?
I've heard of
Road?
that before, Giant's Grave. I've seen that.
What did they find?
Okay, that's a whole other topic about the mound builders of Mesoamerica.
The Cherokee did mounds for burial.
I think a lot of ancient cultures did, and I think there's something that the Smithsonian is hiding.
I've heard about this, about giants.
Giant people that for some reason they hide it. They hide the information because it goes against the current narrative.
Right. We touched a lot
How are you
about
gonna
that
explain
on
that?
episode 9, and you're exactly spot on to what I had said, because I dug up a New York Times article from the late 1800s about giants found in Virginia.
What?
Well, there was a president that went on about it that talked about giant.
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. Okay, so
And he was not a short fellow.
well, he was also not Abraham Lincoln. No, Abraham Lincoln was known for not lying.
Honest Abe,
He
yeah.
was known as Honest Abe. So,
Yeah, and he said during his address at Niagara Falls, we now look on these waterfalls just as the giants did before us.
that's right.
Nice.
That's right. I remember that. I've wrote about that before. Read about that.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing,
Interesting
it's
stuff.
not entirely connected, but since we're talking about presidents, how about Reagan and Jimmy Carter on UFOs?
I'm not aware.
Do you know anything about that?
That's a whole other subject.
Jimmy Carter publicly declassified more information on UFOs that were classified than any other president in history.
It sounds like a Jimmy Carter move.
Now, Reagan was not only a public believer in extraterrestrial life, he mentioned them in the coming war or the prospect of war with extraterrestrials in public addresses, which you can find on YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, Ronald Reagan made Star Wars real.
He was so into it. He had E.T. by Steven Spielberg privately screened in the Oval Office.
Nice.
I think John F. Kennedy was about to reveal some things, and
that's why he got wiped out.
taken care of.
Yeah.
You know, anytime they don't like anybody, Lenin, whatever, they take care of them.
I think it was more of his stance on communism, but there was definitely something up with Kennedy.
Well, he talks about the military-industrial complex.
It could have been a lot of things.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the UFO thing.
Yeah, it depends on what you think is the most egregious.
Which we can talk about, Alex, another time. I'm chock full of information on that.
Oh, I'd love to.
And I myself have a UFO story I would like to revisit
Derek,
with you
I think
sometime.
this is just the beginning of a wonderful friendship.
No, dude, for real. I feel that, man. I feel the energy. I like it.
But this actually is a great segue into your story, Josh.
Oh, I hadn't planned on getting into that now.
Oh, we're getting into that.
Okay.
We're
Well,
gonna do that tonight?
Yeah.
shit. Okay.
Well, hold
Excuse
on,
me.
wait a second. Can we do the thing about, what the hell happened to the recording of the fucking ghost footsteps?
No idea. That's the honest answer.
Okay, well, that's done then.
I have no idea.
Presumably,
it's been 20 years.
It's in storage somewhere, or it's been lost for good.
Best case scenario, it's in the bottom of a box in my dad's basement.
Right.
Worst case scenario, when me and my mom moved out of Hillcrest, it was in one of the boxes. I said, screw it, throw it away, because I don't feel like going through all these boxes.
Man, I want to beat you
Right.
now.
I was in
Well-
a very, very bad mood about having to move. I
That
mean,
was
like,
awesome.
Also,
I
at the
had,
time, you didn't suspect that you'd be having an interview on a podcast about it years and years.
dude,
and years
I
later.
had action figures that are worth hundreds of dollars now that I just said, screw it, man. If you don't want to take it to the Salvation Army, then throw it away.
Todd McFarlane.
Because I'm angry and I don't want to move anything. No, I do have all my McFarlanes. I'm talking about Ghostbusters and Ninja
I think me and you were
Turtles.
destined to be friends, buddy, because not only did we meet each other randomly, but we lived in the same fucking neighborhood.
You are one of two friends I still have 20 years later. Three, if you count one guy I've been friends with on the internet.
So, Josh, you have another story that started once again at a party.
yeah, see,
Seems like this is going to be a recurring theme.
one of the reasons I had such a hard time when
Can
you
I,
and I
can I
tried
say
to
something
do.
real quick before
Please
you
do.
say this? Me and Josh, we've indulged in various substances, and I would not say that doesn't involve, people that do these things, they hallucinate things, blah, blah, blah. Well, our stories, we're coming from the heart. We have no reason to lie. I'm not getting money for this. Josh
I'm not
isn't-
getting money for this. I'm fucking paying money.
It's
for
Nobody's
this.
getting fucking money. So
People
we're-
who have never done drugs are going to say you were tripping.
oh, you were tripping. Blah, blah. No, the fuck we were.
People who have done drugs are going to say, no, I know drug real from real.
Okay, here I have
And
to say
tape
this.
recorders don't lie.
I have to say this. People love to discredit based on, I was smoking marijuana.
Yeah. And
Oh, no,
I will
right.
never deny.
You
the
saw
truth.
Bigfoot when you were smoking marijuana? That it must be because of the marijuana. Right?
Therefore, you didn't see Bigfoot.
Therefore, you didn't see Bigfoot. Dude, if that was actually a thing that happened, then everyone would be like, here, take a hit of this, and you're going to see the 7-foot tall hairy man.
Yeah, if
Right,
only it were that
exactly,
easy. No,
precisely.
no. I many times have been fucked up thinking that I wouldn't see a bunch of heinous shit that I couldn't explain. But fate has odd timing.
Yes.
I'll give you that.
But it's certainly not not caused by the quote unquote hallucinogens.
No. I have had many a strange trip, and I can tell you each time I was not in my right mind. Okay?
Exactly. No, you know your trip from your reality.
You know your drug reel from your real.
Oh, yes.
And like I said, tape recorders don't lie.
No.
They do not.
Definitely not.
I could have doubted myself until we got back to my house and played that audio footage.
So what is the relevance connecting that to the story you're about to tell?
0.
Okay.
0. I had not even tried marijuana at this time. I may have drank once. This was
hold on.
early
I'm sorry, man.
times.
Let's say something real quick. I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
I had known Josh for like 17 years up until the point he told me about this experience he's about to tell you. And he told me
I believe it was 4th of July in the
4th
park.
of July in the park. You know, we were drunk, blah, blah, blah. And Josh finally came clean with it because I had been getting into the whole UFO thing heavily and researching what I could. And he told me about this, and I was flabbergasted. Like, dude, you never told me this.
I'm not entirely sure. This may have been the first time I actually said this to another person who was not involved in the story.
And I was just like, are you serious? How have you never told anybody about this?
It's
So
just
what he's
something I
about to
forgot
tell
over
you,
time.
what he's about to tell you is like, you know, it's crazy as hell.
Well, I did mention earlier that I had interviewed Josh once before, and we went through this story, and he told it to me once before even then, because he knows I'm into this kind of stuff. And I also was flabbergasted. This is not something that 99.9% of people will ever have the opportunity or the misfortune or unfortunateness of, of going through. Whatever it is.
The part that interests me, the part that really gets me is that this was not a me story. This was a someone else story. Just like these past stories have been a me and Derek story. This is a me and someone else story. But this other person I had never met before and have not seen since. And it has haunted me ever since. Where is this guy now, and does he remember what I remember?
Yeah, and we've tried to track him down, haven't we?
I tried a little bit, but...
Because I encouraged you to do so.
Who is it?
Well, one of the problems of the fact is the person that I knew I knew this guy through a few different people, and I've lost contact with all of them. One guy, Michael Leone, can I say his name? I've said it already.
Yeah, you did.
Michael Leone has since transitioned and is now Michelle Leone. I contacted her once and she was all like, well, I'm Michelle now. And when we knew each other, that's all my old life. And if you have a problem with this, then, we can't be friends. And I said, I don't care. I'm just trying to reconnect with my old friend. That was the last thing I heard. And she is probably the key to finding this other person.
Where is she?
I looked her up again last year, and she's using the same profile picture and seemingly has not been online since I spoke to her.
Oh, we need to get her on the show.
If Michelle Leone from Middlebrook, if you're out there, or your brother David, please contact me.
Closure.
Yeah, I need to know if this guy you guys knew remembers what I remember. But for those listening, Alex is taking a little break, so I'm going to go ahead with this.
Well, hold on. I'm going to say they may not remember, Josh. You might be, one of the ones that were there that actually...
The guy I'm talking about, I would be very, very surprised if he doesn't remember anything.
Well, okay. Given that, they are known, they as in whatever they are, extraterrestrials, they're known for wiping memory.
Yeah, but they didn't get me and him.
Okay, well, some people
anyway
are hindered by religion or whatever, and they don't want to admit what they've seen. Maybe you're a special case in that matter.
I have a lot of confidence in this other guy. Let me tell you the story again. You may understand where I'm coming from. So I was about 16, maybe 17. Anyway, I was in a band. I was very young, well over 20 years ago. We had been trying this guy out for second guitar, Lucas, and his girlfriend, who I believe was called Beth, sat in with the rehearsals, and her and our frontman Andrew kind of got a thing going, and she left Lucas, and Lucas was dismissed from even the idea of joining the band. I guess Andrew just hijacked his girl. Anyway, long story short, we all had a thing for Beth. Well, I got a call. I called Beth up one night, one day. I was like, "Hey, Beth, guess what? It's my birthday," which, by the way, is June 24. She's like, "No way. Today's my birthday." And I'm like, "Oh, what are you doing?" She's like, "Oh, I'm getting together. You know, we're going to the Great Wall Chinese buffet. You know, we're going to have lunch, and then we're going to go back to my place in New Hope, which I think is about maybe a 30-minute drive out into the country from Stanton." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, who's going?" And she's like, "Oh, you know, Ben and Andrew are going to be there," which, by the way, was the drummer and the front man from the band I was in. And I'm like, "Oh, really? They're already down for your birthday, but they didn't know it was mine? I'm the fucking lead guitarist." Anyway, not to be bitter or tell a long tale. I agree, because what else was I going to do? So we all ate Chinese. And the idea was to go back to Beth's from there, but I feel like either I got sidetracked or I'm misremembering the order of events. At some point, I was at Michael and Dave Leone's house, now Michelle, and they introduced me to their friend Chris. Chris had a silver new model car at the time with a wicked sound system. This actually might have been, this might have been before we all met at the restaurant. Okay, because not everyone drove, of course, because like our drummer was like not even 18 yet. And I didn't drive for a few more years, even though I was of age. So, we were all like, who's going to ride with who? It got decided I would ride with this guy, Chris, who I didn't know. I don't know if he was Michael's friend or if he was Dave's friend, but he was definitely a friend through one of those guys. So we went to the restaurant, and when we were done eating, it was maybe 40 minutes until sundown. No. Had to have been much closer. Anyway, this much I do know. When we left, it was a good 30 or so minute drive to New Hope, which was her house, where her birthday party was going to be. I rode with this fellow, Chris, question mark, with the silver car with the good sound system. That's all I have to go by. Okay, so we are driving towards New Hope. The sun is going down. Chris and I are in front of the little convoy going down this dirt gravel road. And you've got to think this is about the time X-Files was still huge,
Okay, so we're talking like late 90s, early aughts.
Very late 90s or very
probably 98, 99.
Maybe even about 2000.
Scully Mulder was on everyone's mind at that time.
Yeah,
So
and
hot.
Little Green Men and Silver Discs. It was pop. It really was.
Yeah.
So, and I was a huge X-Files fan. Like I was still technically a minor. I would throw a fucking fit if I missed Friday night. So yeah, that was pretty much on everybody's minds. Little Green Men at the time. If any of you are old enough to remember that, you'll know.
I want to believe.
I want to believe too.
I do believe.
I want to leave. That's all.
Yeah, please take me away.
Take me.
For fuck's sake.
So here we go. We're going down this dirt road to New Hope. If any of our listeners know Stanton and New Hope, they pretty much know the road, I guess, or at least the kind of a ride. And the sun had gone down, I would say, pretty fast after we left Stanton proper. So by the time we were halfway to New Hope, it was dark night. Okay. And so I'm sitting in the passenger seat and I see this a flashing light. Now, we all see flashing lights in the sky, and we know they're almost always airplanes or satellites. But again, this was the heyday of X-Files. So almost entirely jokingly, I say to Chris, I say, hey, look, man, there's a UFO. And technically, isn't it? An unidentified flying object.
It's unidentified, you're right.
You don't know what it is. It's UFO.
Exactly. So he says, where?
They call them UAPs now.
Yeah, unidentified aerial phenomenon, which actually is a more accurate term because it might not be an object.
That's true.
It may not be flying.
Could be frozen poop from a plane.
Could be.
That's a space peanut.
Exactly. You know what I'm talking about.
All right. So imagine, if you will, looking out of a windshield or windscreen, if you're listening from England, of a car. Yeah. Okay. Now, when I saw this, it was in the extreme upper right quadrant. The very extreme upper right corner, which, as anyone knows, driving in America is the passenger side. When I saw it, so again, I said, look, a UFO. He said, where? And he begins to look over, in kind of my direction out the windshield. And by this time, it is no longer visible from the windshield. And I said, you missed it, man. It must be on top of us or something by now. Just, judging from the trajectory it was headed. So what does he do? He reaches up, and I had not noticed until then, this man in his very nice silver car with a nice sound system has a sunroof. He pulls back it's that little slide door with the upholstery. And there's just glass. You know how it works.
Yes.
So we look up and Jesus. What I saw was an array of lights, very much like marquee lights. You've got these globular white lights that are in a square around a marquee, maybe with the cinema showing the title of the film.
Yeah,
right?
Like the old, I don't know what you call those bulbs. I can't put a word to it.
They're round. That's all I know.
Round bulbs.
They're round and they're white. Well, what I saw anyway, looking up out of that sunroof, looked to be, if they were normal marquee lights, they would have been 5 feet on top of us. That's how big they were. In the shape of a cross. Like Jesus on the cross kind of cross. Even though I'm not saying that I'm a believer in Christianity, that was the shape that I was seeing.
So there was an end that had like a bit more length to it than the other three ends, is what you're saying.
Well, that's what I was getting
That's what it looked like to me, yeah.
So you're saying one end was longer than all of the other three?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a cross.
But these lights were so big that if they were marquee lights, they couldn't have been more than 5 feet from the sunroof. But in my mind, judging the distance in that split second, I would guess they were probably at maximum 20 feet above us. That's
very close.
That's where my memory ends.
Can I say something? This is the same exact story Josh told me on that golf course. So if he's lying, he's great at it. If he's not, he definitely saw this, whatever the hell it is.
My memory isn't that good from one day to the next.
Well, neither is mine.
Personally, I've never questioned Josh, but I have a very low threshold for believability. Generally, I take people at face value, and that's the reason that I do this kind of show.
Right.
Well, as Derek will tell you, this story has not changed in the fucking maybe 5 years since I told him.
Well, it hasn't changed since the first time you've told me either. The thing that I really like about this, or the thing that really grips me, is that where you left off, basically, it's almost sort of like a blackout moment.
Absolutely.
It's right above you.
It's missing time.
Yeah, that it's kind of...
I didn't think of it then, but in retrospect, it's exactly right out of X-Files. What happened?
It's exactly what you would hear in a situation like this, pretty consistently. And I don't think you're making it up. Why would I have any reason to believe so? But you saw this cross of lights above you. Did you see it attached to any sort of structure or multiple crafts or something like that?
No, it was night. It was night.
All you
when
could
we
see were
looked
the
up, all
lights.
we saw were lights, and they were obviously separate lights that were arranged in some kind of pattern.
Well,
That to me at the time looked like a cross.
Was it blinding light, or was it like could you manage it with your typical?
It was dim enough so that I could make out the individual bulbs or sources of light.
And just for
did you hear
spotlights?
Did you hear any sounds?
And just for detail, what was the hue of the bulbs? Was it like
it just looked like white circles of light arranged in a cross?
It didn't have that sort of yellowy tinge that you would have seen on bulbs from, the 1990s and backward.
Like halogens and shit?
Yeah.
No.
So it was more of like a LED white.
LED doesn't even look pure white to me. It just looked like pure white light.
Okay.
Now, when I say globular light, I mean like those white globes with the light bulbs in them.
Yeah, like a Thomas Edison
The
bulb.
color of the bulb doesn't matter because it's illuminating this white bulb that it's inside of. But they weren't sharp. You know what I mean? It wasn't sharp like you're looking at a globe. It was kind of spread out like you're looking at a light source.
Well, like, did you talk to the people in the car, like, after the fact, like, the next day?
I'm getting to that.
Yeah, that's what we're getting to. And this is a part of the story where I find it extremely fascinating.
So, that's where my memory ends. Where my memory picks up again is Chris and I. God, I wish I remembered his last name. Or even, I may have never known it. Anyway, Chris and I, we are standing on either side of the car, respectively, him on the driver's side, me on the passenger side, looking up into the sky, and we hear this litany of fucking car horns. So we turn around, and like all of the people that were in our little convoy heading to New Hope were all bumper to bumper behind us. And this girl, I don't remember who she was. I don't even remember her name, but apparently she was a friend of Beth's, had gotten out of, she was the car behind us, immediately behind us. She had gotten out of her car and approached Chris and was basically like, "What the F are you doing?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "You came out of nowhere. We thought you were like miles ahead, and then out of nowhere, you're 20 feet ahead and I'm slamming on my brakes." And apparently everyone behind her did the same. Frankly, I'm a little impressed that there was no fender benders, but Chris looked at me, I looked at him, and we just laughed. And I don't know what he said to her. I was not in the state of mind to really process what was going on. He said something to her, and she got back in her car, and we got back in his car. I do not remember the conversation we had, but eventually we ended up in New Hope at Beth's house at Beth's birthday party. And this is the only thing left I have of this story. I remember several times him and I would look at each other from across the room and bust out laughing. Like, Jesus, if these people only knew.
Also, if you only knew, you guys had no idea what happened. Apparently.
No, but I think because of the timing in pop culture, I think we both had the same assumption. But
you both definitely knew that something weird happened there.
It wasn't even that it happened to us together that was so amusing. It was the fact that it happened in the proximity of all those people, and none of them would believe us. None of them would ever believe us. And I don't even remember talking to him about it. I just remember at certain points in the night, him and I would look at each other and just laugh and shake our heads.
I remember you telling me that same exact thing.
And yes, Chris, if you're fucking out there, please contact Alex. I have wondered where you are for over 20 years. And if you remember what I remember. And that's it. That's the end of my story.
And what a fucking story that was, man. My real concern is what happened during that missing time. And I don't think you or I will ever know, but I'm wondering if you have any sort of conjecture.
I mean, there's the Travis Walton stories. There's so many stories about anal probing or what have you.
Dude,
Different people have experienced.
You need hypnotic regression.
Exactly. I have no idea. I would not even begin to speculate. I just know I was in the seat, passenger seat, and then I was outside the car. And whatever happened in between, I won't even pretend to guess.
That's what I asked during our first interview, the one that we scrapped.
What did I say originally?
Did you ever consider hypnotic regression therapy?
Oh.
And you said something about Whitley Strieber.
Yeah, Whitley Strieber did it and talked about being probed in his anus. And that was very funny when Christopher Walken played him and had to say that. If you can find someone who can do it, I'd undergo it. Sure. I mean, what have I had to lose, really?
I do believe Christopher Walken also has another very famous quote from a movie about my dad's watch. Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I had that uncomfortable hunk of metal in my ass for 17 years.
But, you also told me, you said you kind of didn't want to have regression because of the fact that, first of all, it's not necessarily known to be reliable. We don't know if what you're seeing in regression is real.
There's like maybe 17% of the total populace is even really susceptible to hypnosis.
Yeah.
So I'm not even convinced it would work on me. But I mean, you're asking me now, would I? I'd try it. Sure. What have I to lose?
Yeah, well,
if you can find someone who can do it,
that's
sure.
the thing. I don't really know anybody. I've never looked into it that much.
And I don't feel like paying. I don't feel like seeking out a professional in paying what it would take to find this out. I feel like if I just found Chris, that would be all I needed to know. What do you remember from that night?
Yeah, I think that's honestly probably the better source of information that needs to be found.
I will say for your listeners, if anyone wants to provide regression hypnosis to me, if you are that curious what happened and are willing to make this happen, please contact Alex. Yes, I'd be more than happy to subject myself to it out of sheer decades-long curiosity.
And I'd be very happy to see how that goes as well. So, Josh, I'll back you up on that. If anybody wants to suggest a good hypnosis or hypnotist in the area and is willing to contribute to the service fees,
or if there are any psychoanalysts listening who would like to volunteer their skills, because I certainly cannot afford this kind of therapy.
Yeah, it's certainly not going to be cheap. I'm sure. And I'm not making money doing this show, so there's no way I can use my costs or use my income.
I certainly never got paid by whatever happened to me.
No, you didn't. But maybe if they make a Fire in the Sky Part 2, it'll be your story.
Oh,
but we need that.
My story is so much more boring than Travis Walton's.
We need the hypnotic regression to even know if that's the case.
Travis Walton, man, he had what? A whole fucking team of laborers with him when it happened?
Yeah, he had 5 other guys.
There's no denying what happened to that guy.
Witnessed the experience. It's a profound experience. And Travis Walton, Fire in the Sky, if no one's ever read the book, heard the story, seen the movie.
He saw a saucer. There was a saucer.
It wasn't a saucer. It was a ball of light.
Was it a ball of light?
Yeah.
I read there was a saucer.
It was a spaceship-sized ball of light that had a electrical arc come out and zap him.
Okay, can I make one little footnote about Travis Walton while we're here?
Sure.
As you know, I recently got to interview Greg Sestero of Tommy Wiseau's The Room fame.
Yes.
He is very interested in this subject. He has recently been talking to Travis Walton.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
And I think Greg Sestero has his own little project coming up that is somehow about Travis Walton's story.
Give me his number.
Greg Sestero's number?
You talked to him on your personal phone. I couldn't give it to you. I'm not the one who arranged the interview. I was sort of as a guest interviewer on the show. But he lives in California anyway. It doesn't matter.
No.
Does matter.
Give me a little bit. I might be able to contact the right people if you're interested in talking to him.
I only want to do it just because he's Greg Sestero.
Yeah. That was my whole. That was the only reason I wanted to talk to him.
Who the hell's Greg Sestero?
Have you ever seen The Room with Tommy Wiseau?
Have you ever seen The Puppet Master Part 7?
I know he hasn't seen that. Nobody has.
Okay, here's a funny story about Puppet Master.
Yeah.
You know the guy with the drill head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Forget his name. My granddad used to teach school at Valley View Tech. He taught cabinet making, woodworking, etc. Well, I went to him and we made an actual replica of that.
That is awesome.
I still have it. And so Puppet Master's got a sweet spot in my heart. Puppet Master 7 I've never seen, I don't think. I remember the original though.
So Puppet Master, I think it was 7 that Greg was in. It was an origin story. So, you know, kind of like Hellraiser 4 or
They were Clockworks, right?
can't even think of any of the others. No, they weren't. They were just dolls.
It wasn't magic? Was it magic or clockwork?
It was magic.
Okay.
Yeah, so the guy would make these little dolls, and then he would have this kind of cultic sort of ceremony and bring spirits into the dolls, right?
Right.
That's how they became living, breathing little fucking mayhem,
Fucking
serial
awesome
killers. Yeah.
I'd keep him in a cage.
So I really kind of wanted to get into a couple more stories, but guys, I think we've run out of time. We're gonna have a round 2 of this later.
Absolutely.
I can't thank you enough for having us.
It's been really good having you guys out, and if
This isn't a story that, you know, it's really easy to tell people either our stories and our stories
No, it's
combined.
not. It's really
I don't
not.
think anyone who's been on my show has had a story that's easy to tell.
Well, you go on against the norm.
Yeah, and I
Absolutely.
appreciate you guys coming on and being brave and telling, you know, things as you had actually experienced them. I think this is the reason why so many guests will give me the runaround, because they're happy to tell me in private. But when it comes to sharing it with the rest of the world, it's not easy to do.
No, it's
And
not.
I don't realize that because I just don't have inhibitions. And I will
I
tell
have very few myself.
I will tell things as I see them. And
You should.
when I extrapolate that to like the political realm, it loses me a lot of friends. But I think
It's better to be right than popular. I've always been.
I'm not even sure that
Agreed.
I'm right all the time. But it's good to be, you know, upfront and forthcoming. And I think the people who have stuck around with me for all the years that they have are people who see me not as a weirdo, but as someone who's just willing to be honest.
Yep.
And I appreciate you guys coming on to my show and sharing that same sort of sentiment of honesty and truth with the rest of the world.
No,
And you know, it's not the people who are absolutely convinced of what is out there that really appeal to me. It's the people who are just not satisfied with the answers. Those are the people I gravitate towards.
yeah.
Well, that's why you're here right now, man. It's not that I know. It's not that you know. It's not
No.
that any of us know. It's that
I still don't know what happened, but
It's that we're
that's the
willing-
best story I can give you.
it's that we're willing to accept what we've seen,
Mhm.
Yeah.
what's been put in front of us, and even if we don't have the answer to it, we know what it is. I mean, we know that it is what it is, whatever it is. You know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. What fools we would be to assume that what we know of reality is all there is. I mean, regardless of what you believe.
I always
Come on, is this all there is? I fucking hope not.
I always bring it back to Socrates. When I was in high school, I heard this phrase when we were learning about Greek history. The greatest knowledge is to know that you know nothing.
Exactly.
I believe.
And this theme keeps reappearing in my life, and it's something that I tell myself every day. You don't have to know everything. The wealth of knowledge that's available is barely possible to be tapped into.
Yeah, it's true.
In even just a small percent. You're never going to get the entirety of it, but just getting a small bit of it and being open to that small bit of it is much more valuable than being sure that you know everything.
Yeah.
And we have way too many of those know-it-alls these
You're
days.
not going to know it all. You're not going to experience it all. There's people out there that have seen things you've never seen before. And the only thing you can do is just ride along for the ride. And, you know, what me and Josh have seen, what we have experienced, You know, I'm not trying to say I'm better than you. I'm not trying to say I know more than you. I'm just trying to tell you that there's more out there than you would actually believe.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
I've seen shit that'll turn you white.
And all these memories will be lost like tears in the rain.
And a person who claims to know it all or to have the final say on any subject is always going to be someone who's not to be trusted.
Right. What are you trying to
Someone with an agenda.
What are you trying to sell me? Exactly.
So, guys, thank you so much for coming down.
Yeah, no problem, brother.
We will get back together. We'll do this again. And
I
Derek,
hope so. This has been a very good experience.
Yeah.
You've got Josh has told me you have a whole bunch of OBE stories, out of body experiences.
Oh boy.
We'll get to that next time.
Oh man.
So buckle up, everybody. Thank you.
Yep.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
And that wraps up our interview for the evening. The story of Josh and Derek, at least for the moment. Apparently there's more to come. But before we get out of here, everyone, I just want to say, if you caught me early on saying liquors were in Silent Hill, I know they're from Resident Evil. Please don't give me grief over that. I got it mixed up for a second, okay? Just leave me alone. But in talking to these guys, I learned how valuable it is to have someone share their experiences with you. I've never really realized that before because I have no inhibitions and don't really care what people think, but it's not easy for a lot of people to come out and say something that might have them stigmatized as crazy loonies. I just want to thank Josh and Derek one more time for coming out and sharing that with me and with everyone else listening. That really takes a lot of bravery. We mentioned a lot of things in the show that I'd provide links for in the show notes. All of the relevant links will be there, including a little video I put together of us visiting that same house the next day. That's right, we actually did go out to the house like we said we would do, and it is very creepy. It's still standing and in actually pretty good shape, unexpectedly. And the place is about, I'd say 5 to 10 feet from the road. You could hop off the road and touch it with your hand. All the windows are smashed out. It is kind of a mess, but it's still standing. And we went down there after I got off work, so it was at night. But I did take a video of it, and you're going to be able to see some of the interior. You can see a couple pictures of the exterior. It is super, super creepy. And the first thing that happened when I stepped foot into that house, there was a long hiss sound. I'm not going to say I know what it was that made that hiss sound. I didn't see anything, but it was a little jarring. It sounded like it was coming from under my feet, which I don't know. Could have been coming from upstairs. It could have been coming from another room. I don't really know. And the entire property is covered in trees, and these trees are just absolutely swarming with vines. Has kind of a reminiscence of that very notorious scene from The Evil Dead. If you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. But that's all I wanted to say for tonight, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful night.